Good morning, Shekhar.
మార్నింగ్ మేడం.
సంతోష్ వస్తే క్రాంతిని అటెండ్ అవ్వ మన క్లాస్ కి ఫోన్ లో కదా.
ఓకే నేను కాల్ చేస్తాను.
ఒకసారి మోహన్ సార్ కి శ్రీకాంత్ కి కాల్ చేసాక మేబీ మోహన్ సార్ ఉన్నారా లేదా ఐడియా లేదు నాకు.
శ్రీకాంత్ యాడ్ అయినట్టున్నాడు మేడం. లేదా? ఓకే ఓకే రైట్, నేను ఫోన్ చేస్తాను.
గుడ్ మార్నింగ్ సార్.
గుడ్ మార్నింగ్ మా.
ఫుల్ ఎలక్షన్ బిజీ అనుకుంటా.
ఎప్పుడే అయిపోయింది కదమ్మా. ఇప్పుడు కలకత్తాలో క్లాస్ కోసం వచ్చానమ్మా.
కలకట్టా టైం ఉందా? పర్వాలేదు కదా.
ఫోన్ జాయిన్ మళ్ళీ వెళ్ళిపోతుంది, కింద 9 స్టార్ట్ అవుతే వెళ్ళిపోతుంది.
అయినా జస్ట్ అలా వింటూ వెళ్ళిపోండి. అయితే ఎక్కడ ప్లేసు?
ఐటీసీ రాయల్.
ఓకే
కదా, మీ ఊరే కదా.
అదే ఎక్కడా నంది అందుకడుగుతా.
మొదలు పెట్టండి శ్రీకాంత్, మొదలు పెట్టండి.
ఓకే
శేఖర్ ఏమైంది? శేఖర్ శేఖర్
డిస్కనెక్ట్ అయ్యి మళ్ళీ జాయిన్ అయ్యాడు సార్. Yeah, shall we start?
Shekhar start చేసే మళ్ళీ meeting కి
Okay, madam. Okay, madam. Is it visible?
Okay.
Visible, madam?
Visible. The slide share.
Okay. Full screen పెట్టలేదు మేడం, full screen పెట్టాలి అంతే.
అదే full screen పెట్టి స్టార్ట్ చేసే.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. This is a lecture about how to lecture, which was inspired. This is a copycat of what a recent lecture about a recent lecture I attended regarding the DNB students. It's a very inspiring. Seldom you come across these kind of lectures which are inspiring and influential. So I just want to share my experience with you. That's why I kept this topic today: the vanishing of art of lecturing. We all, most of us, are teachers, and remaining of us are future teachers. So we should learn how to lecture and how to prepare for a class and how to address our audience when you are doing when you are giving a speech or lecture or whatever it is. So today we are going to the details of how to lecture and what not to do and what to do in becoming a successful lecturer, in making our topic or in making our whatever the class or lecture or PPT or whatever it is, we should know what to teach the audience and what to expect from the audience and what is more important than giving just information. So most people tire of a lecture in 10 minutes. Clever people do it in 5. Sensible people never go to lectures at all. This was this statement given by Stephen Leacock, who is a 19th century guy who is fed up with lectures and monotonous lectures and too much information given by the lecturing, and there is no enthusiasm or interest for him in the lectures. He did a lot of research and came to this conclusion that most people tire of a lecture in 10 minutes, and sensible people never go to lectures at all. So this is a very famous quote from him, and we will start with this quote. And so what is lecture? By definition, lecture is an uninterrupted rambling exposition of apparently irrelevant trivial information delivered in a sleep-inducing monotone for 1 hour. As we know, most of our lectures, when we go for a class or when we not, actual lecturing, doing in a class or in a conference, which is small conferences, it will be 40 minutes, or a large conference, it will be 20 or 30 minutes. So it is an uninterrupted rambling exposition of apparently irrelevant. So most of them is irrelevant. What we do, what we give the information there is most of it is irrelevant to the audience, and it's a trivial information. So it is not the most important information. It's a trivial information which is given in a sleep-inducing monotone. So first of all, you are not giving a relevant information. Second, it is a trivial information which can be learned later, and it is delivered in a monotone that it induces sleep. So this kind of, this is the actual definition of lecture, which was given by Stephen Leacock. So how you classify your orators or lecturers? So the first one is an obfuscator. So obfuscator is a person who confuses himself and confuses the audience by giving the lecture. At the end of the lecture, you will never gain anything from that lecture, because it is so confusing that the lecturer himself is confused about the topic, what he is telling. So what he's lecturing. So, and this kind of lecturers, these kind of lectures come in the first type of lecturers. Most of us have seen these kind of lecturers. And the second one is the regurgitator. Regurgitator means whatever that is there in the book, he will either by heart it and he will present it at the lecture. So whether he knows it, whether the audience is enjoying it, whether the audience is listening to it, he doesn't mind about it. He just comes and whatever the subject that is with him, he will just go in one flow, and he will never bother about the audience whether they understood or not. That's a regurgitator. And the third one is the facilitator. These kind of lecturers we need. So facilitator will just give you an idea about what is he's doing and what is the lecture is about, and he will give an outside idea. He will not go into the depth of everything, including in that lecture or in the topic, but he will give an idea. He will facilitate your thinking. He will facilitate your approach towards a topic. That's a facilitator. Coming to the next part, most of us, our lectures will be in the first top two only. The third one will be very rarely seen. Now, either we will confuse our audience, or we will just guess it what we are having in our mind, and we just don't bother about whether they understood or not. So coming to the next part is lecturalgia. What is a lecturalgia? Lecture, when you go to a conference or when you go to a even in a classroom, when we were in our MBBS or anything, when the lectures continuously lecture by lecture, when the lectures are going on, at one point of time it will become a painful lecture, because we just want to end the day. We don't want to further prolong the lectures. We are fed up with the lectures. That is known as lecturalgia. So this is the syndrome experienced by the members of the lecture to or audience. So whether the audience becomes so fatigued that they don't want any more lecture from the person who is giving lecture, or persons who is giving lectures on that day. That is known as lecturalgia. They want to just there's the person to complete the lecture and they want to go home. They don't want anything from that. This is a kind of apathy towards lecture. So coming to what are the causes or symptoms of lecturalgia? The symptoms of lecturalgia are two types. Either they are heightened emotions. These emotions, these can be hesitation, frustration, or anger towards the lecturer or the topic, or a suppressed emotions. These are very common. Either it is apathy, we don't bother what the lecturer is telling us, what the orator is telling us. And the first and the most common thing is somnolence. We just if you keep anybody who is having insomnia in a lecture, he will get definitely sleep within 10 minutes. So lectures are so boring that people will get to sleep within 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Myself, I used to sleep in my lectures in my PG classes and in my UG classes also. So these lectures which are on monotonous are so sleep inducing, especially when you are in a going for an afternoon lectures post lunch. These are very sleep inducing. And even in the mornings, after 1 hour after, I'm saying extended a period of 1 hour, but within 20 minutes or 30 minutes, we'll get a yawn or a sleep or anything when we are listening to a lecture. So these are suppressed emotions. So heightened emotions are expressed by somebody who is very frustrated of these lectures, as agitation, anger, and frustration. And suppressed emotions are apathy and somnolence. So these are the common symptoms of uh, lecturalgia. So these painful lectures will cause these kind of emotions in the patient, in the audience. So coming to the next part, what are the causes of lecturalgia? First cause of lecturalgia is when your objectives are unclear about your lecture, it will cause lecturalgia in the audience. If you are clear about what you want to present in your lecture, then there will be no lecture. Then the lecture will be more interesting for the audience also. Second one is when there are too many lectures one by one, if they are disorganized, they are not in a continuous pattern, or they are not interconnected, then they will be then if it is the lectures are disorganized and they are not interconnected, then the audience will feel lecturalgia. And too much too fast, you want to dump so much information that is with you, so too quick and too fast, so the audience will not understand what they are getting into their minds. So what happens is when we when we do too much too fast, nothing will go into the minds. The audience will lose interest because it is too much. They can't comprehend what we are telling. So we have to give some time to comprehend what the lecture is about and what the orator is telling to them before understand and to have to understand to get an interest on the topic. So if you just dump the information too quickly and too fast, nothing will go into the minds of the audience and it will be a disaster. And if the lecture does not relate to the audience, they will never understand. If they don't understand, or if you don't respond to the audience needs, you have to plan your lecture according to the audience needs. What kind of audience you are addressing? You cannot give a PhD lecture to a undergraduate. You cannot give a completely irrelevant topic to a completely irrelevant audience, because they have to relate the audience. The topic must relate to the audience so that they can that should invoke some interest in them. So we have to be very careful in delivering our lectures of who we are addressing. That is more important. So that is, if we don't relate with the audience, if the audience doesn't relate with the topic, they will get lecturalgia, and the lecturer should and the orator should respond to the audience needs at that point of time, and at the same time he had to plan the lecture according to the needs of the audience. So coming to, in spite of all these drawbacks, why lecture? Why can't we move on from lecture? Why we have to go for why lecture is so important if lecture has these many drawbacks? Why? Because the lecture is about to inspire, influence, and inform. So we don't do it at all. We just give the information. We just inform more, influence less, and inspire never. So we will never inspire in our lectures, and we will influence a little bit, but we will give a lot of information in a too little time that the audience will get bored. So the lecture should not be like that. The lecture should first inspire. It should inspire at the end of the audience should be inspired at the end of the lecture. Then the lecture should influence their life. or their practice or their anything. So, but with a little bit of information in that lecture, because information is everywhere these days. Information, you cannot dump your information because they will get a better information on Google than you. So you cannot dump your information there. You just need to inspire and influence with your lecture. And information is nothing, you have to transform and inform. It's not nothing, it's not like you just give the information what is there in the book or what is there on in the article or what is there in the textbook or PPT or whatever it is. So you have to transform that information and inform that information in your own way. You need to be creative in that aspect. Coming to what makes a lecture effective. First thing is expertise. Second thing is, if you are expertise in that subject, automatically you will have that enthusiasm to put forward your lecture, and at the same time you can give the audience so much time, because you are an expertise, you know the entire system of that entire depth of the subject, so that you can engage the audience and you can give the audience much more time to inculcate that experience into them. And explaining ability, if you are an expertise, you will explain better. Okay, so if you are an expertise, you have to explain it better, and you have to, of course, then you can engage that audience. So enthusiasm, you must have an enthusiasm to towards the subject or towards the topic which we are lecturing about. Then it will create that enthusiasm, that will transfer that enthusiasm towards the audience, and they will feel enthusiastic. And this enthusiasm will evoke interest in the audience. And you have to make your effort to evoke interest in the audience in experiencing the lecture. So the lecture as an instructional method, by definition, is by definition, we will go into the definition, we will go to the myths of the lecture, and we will go into the guidelines about how to create a lecture. So by definition, lecture is a discourse on a subject by one person to a number of students like this. One teacher will be there and about 100, and he is addressing about 100 students or audience, whatever you call them. You will be addressing hundreds of 100, at least 50 to 100 people by on a discourse on a subject. It's a subject discourse which is delivered by one person to many people. So it is a one-way pathway. So it should be more effective, because 100 people will have 100 things in their minds and 100 types of understanding. So you as a teacher or a lecturer or an orator, you have to so innovative. You have to be so innovative that everything should be understood by every person in that audience. Every person in that audience should feel like that this is about me. So this topic is useful to me. This topic is very interesting. You have to make it interesting by doing that. So coming about the myths of the lecture. First myth is, if you are covering information, it's not teaching. We always think covering information is teaching. Covering information is not teaching. Covering information is just giving an information. That's it. It's not teaching. Teaching is much more better than covering information. So in our lectures, covering information, we think it's teaching. Because we used to have a physiology lecture. I think Srikanth will know much better. We need to have a physiology professor in our UG. She used to give all the information that is there in Guyton on her OHP sheets. But no, she never ever bothered about whether we are listening to her, we are we are getting some information, or whether we are interested or not. She just completes her lecture for 40 or 45 minutes, and she just leaves. and that too, that lecture is that total information is from the Gaitan or Gyanam only. So she never bothered about how it is, how to transform that information from the Gaitan or Gyanam and give it to the people, give it to us. So covering information is never teaching, and speech making is never an instruction. If you give a speech, you can't instruct all the whole audience with one speech, because instruction is very, if you want to make it as an instruction, it should be personal. It should, every person in that audience should feel personal about that thing. So speech making is not an instruction. So at the end of the lecture, if there are no questions, you feel that everybody is understood. No, no questions is not equal to understanding. We always think no questions means understanding, because no questions means they are fed up with your lecture. They don't want to repeat they don't want you to repeat the same lecture again by asking questions. Pleased group reaction is never equal to learning. Pleased group reaction, at the end of the lecture, you give a feedback form. If the audience, most of them will give a 4-star or very good or satisfied, whatever it is, they will never give a negative comment on the feedback form. That doesn't mean they learned something. Pleased group reaction is not learning. Pleased group reaction is the courtesy of the audience that they are giving to a lecture. That's it. It's never about learning. So academic success is not equal to teaching skills. A guy that is having an excellent academics cannot be a good teacher. I mean, I'm not saying it cannot, but it shouldn't be. You cannot assume that his academic success will lead him to be a better teacher than who is having a less academic success. It's not. It's never equivalent. Academic success is never equivalent to a teaching skill. Teaching skills are separate from what academic skills. And at the same time, intellectual achievement. A person who is having high intellect may not speak. That doesn't mean that's how it is. If the person giving the lecture if he has an intellect, then he cannot give an effective speech also. That doesn't mean he should give an effective speech. An intellectual person might not having that pedagogic ability, so that he can deliver a better speech than a less intellectual person. So intellectual achievement is never equal to pedagogic ability. And a best student in his life might not be a best teacher in his life. So best student, as I said, academic success or a best student in his life, in his childhood, who might be having a number of gold medals or something in his MBBS and MD, might not be a good teacher in future, because both are different. Academic success is never equivalent to teaching ability. So coming to the next part, here we have, so according to this, we are coming to the next part there, where we are dividing the teachers into 4 types. So as you can see, on the y-axis we have utility, and the x-axis we have novelty. So utility and novelty, these are the 2 things. What is utility? Means usefulness, whether the lecture is useful or the lecturer is useful or not. Novelty means creating something new, creating something new out of scrap. So that is novelty, whether the lecturer or lecturer is having some novelty, or whether the lecturer or lecturer is having some utility. Based on this, either it is novel or not novel, or useful or not useful. On this, we have 4 kinds of lecturers we can see here. When the person or the lecture who is not novel and not useful. Here I'm not quoting about anybody, but this is arbitrary thing is an old goat because he's not new. He's not giving a new information, or he or she is not giving a new information, and the information is also not useful. So these kind of teachers are old goats. And the next one is the usefulness is there in the information, but it is not novel. You cannot, if you can't give a new perspective to the topic which is already there, but the topic is useful, it will be a boring thing only. Because if you want to give a new perspective to the topic, you have to work on it and you have to create something new to evoke interest in the audience. So if even the topic is useful, if it is not having any novelty, then it will be a bore only. Coming to some people are so creative, if they don't have the subject in them, they will just go on blabbering whatever they want to do. So these kind of lecturers are very dangerous because they don't know what, they are not useful, but they are having the creativity to engage the audience. So at the end of the audience, they will mesmerize the audience and give the speech, and at the end of the session, they will not deliver anything useful in their lectures. These kind of guys are very dangerous. And the last person who is novel and useful is the creative teacher. So we need either pedantic bores are also useful, or creative teachers are also useful. At least these two kinds of people, at least they have something, we can learn something from them. So the other two varieties, we don't want to get into the lectures. These guys shouldn't be the lecturers. So coming to the next part, how do you treat this is the question to all the this is an example. I'm giving you an example. This is a question to all the PG students. How do you treat malignant hyperthermia? Anybody can answer. I gave you a clue there. Kranti, Ravi.
Good morning, sir.
What is the treatment of malignant hyperthermia?
Sir, dantrolene sodium, sir. IV correction of fluid correction, antibiotics, then ice cold water sponging, sir.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. So this is how the student learns. Okay, mute yourself, Ravi. So this is how we will recollect the information. If you don't have better idea about the things. So this is a mnemonic I gave in the second line to how to treat malignant hyperthermia. So save the heart dude, better give ice fluid fast. Save. Stop the triggering agents. First, you need to stop the triggering agents. Whatever the trigger that is causing malignant hyperthermia, you need to stop the triggering agent. Then hyperventilate. Then give dantrolene. Then give bicarbonate. Give glucose insulin, because it will cut bicarbonate and glucose cut down the hyperkalemia. Intravenous isol fluids and flowed blankets. Furosemide. Give furosemide and fluid monitoring or input-output chart. This is then now everybody can understand. They will never forget about malignant hyperthermia treatment. I'm again stopping this. Ravi, can you again tell what is the can you tell the treatment about malignant hyperthermia?
Sir, first you have to withhold that triggering agent, particularly inhalation agents or succinylcholine or any other cross-reactive agents.
Don't go into details. Just stop the triggering. We stop with the triggering agent. Next.
Sir, hyperventilation.
Hyperventilation.
Then dantrolene sodium.
Dantrolene sodium.
IV fluids correction, ice cold glucose insulin.
Yes.
Therapy. IV fluids. Furosemide.
Furosemide. And fluids. Fluid monitoring. So that's how it's easy if you innovate your lecture by mnemonics or something. I just gave an example of a mnemonic here. It need not to be a mnemonic. It can be anything in the lecture that you give when you are giving a lecture, so that the people can engage and people can get the information. This is the basic information. They will never this kind of information into the details. How much dose of dantrolene you should have to give, how much intravenous fluids you have to give an hour. Then they can learn it from the textbook. You need not focus on that in the lecture. You just have to give an outside idea of what to do and what not to do in a lecture. Not into the details of the lecture, because if you go into the details, it will get boring. Next, guidelines for an effective lecture. So you should not be complete. Don't be complete. Don't give the complete information about the topic. Just give an outline. Don't mention anything once. If don't mention anything once means what is important, you have to mention it again and again and again. What is not important, you can leave it. If there's an important topic, one example is, what is the most common cause of mitral stenosis? Give about Ravi.
Sir.
Can you give 5 causes of mitral stenosis?
The rheumatic heart disease, congenital heart disease, sir.
Okay, that's how it is. They will never understand what is there. So I will explain what is it. What are the 5 causes of mitral stenosis? Is most common causes of mitral stenosis. 1 is rheumatic heart disease, 2 is rheumatic heart disease, 3 is rheumatic heart disease, 4 is rheumatic heart disease, 5 is rheumatic heart disease. Mute yourself, Ravi. So that's how you should mention, because the most common cause is rheumatic heart disease. You have to mention the most common cause more than once, so that they can understand this is the most common cause. The other 10 causes they can read, whether they can forget in their life or they can read in the book, but this is the most common cause. They should understand what is the important thing. So you have to mention, don't mention anything once means you have to mention the most important thing twice or thrice or number of times. So don't restate, but create. So don't restate. You don't pick the line from the textbook and put it in your presentation or just regurgitate in front of your audience. But you have to transform that information and you have to make it more creative and give the information in the lecture. Don't confess. You have to be very convinced about your lecture, about the topic. You don't have you shouldn't say this topic is very hard. I didn't understand after these many years I didn't understand what is what. I don't know how will you understand. You shouldn't say these kind of words in front of your audience, because once you say this word, they will, of course, the professor cannot understand or the lecturer cannot understand. How can we understand with our limited knowledge? They will never uh, assimilate themselves into the lecture. So don't confess, professor. You have to be command. You have to hold your command on the topic, and you have to be very much you have to convince the audience that this topic is important and this topic is not that hard, or this topic is relevant to your future. Don't extemporize, just organize. So you shouldn't extemporize, because you shouldn't go to the lecture unprepared. You cannot speak whatever you can. This is a small topic. You shouldn't think that you can talk in front of the audience for 1 hour or 20 minutes, whatever it is, without any preparation, because that will make the lecture very disorganized, and you will forget a lot of things, and that will create more confusion in the audience. So you have to organize your lecture. Don't give a monologue, just break the monotony. Don't keep on giving whatever the information you have, go in a monotone, and whatever the information that you have in a single this thing. Don't interrupt me. Don't say the audience that don't interrupt me while I'm delivering the lecture, and you can ask only the questions at the end. You shouldn't do that. To be an effective lecture, they can ask questions in between also. They have to, because the question needs to be answered at the end are different from the questions needs to be answered at that point, because they had to understand what is what going on, because they are you created some interest for the persons who are having questions in their minds. So if you want to go on, keep the interest going on, you need to interact with the audience while you are giving the lecture. So don't exceed the time. This is the most important thing. If your lecture is about 25 minutes, don't make it 30 minutes or 26 minutes also. Complete it in 24 minutes and give the 1 minute for the break. So please don't exceed the time. So how to prepare for a lecture? Coming to, it should be lively, it should be educative, it should be creative, it should be thought-provoking, it should be understandable to everybody, and it should be relevant to their profession or to their life, and it should be enjoyable. At the end, it's the most important thing. The lecture should be more enjoyable for the audience as well as for the lecturer. So do not do this in a lecture. Don't annoy, don't bore the audience, don't confuse the audience, don't distract the audience from the topic, don't exhaust yourself for the audience. So PowerPoint, what is the role of PowerPoint? PowerPoint is killing the lecture, because PowerPoint is a aid to make the lecture more interesting. But what we are doing these days, most of us, is just we are keeping everything dumping into the PowerPoint. We are just blabbering about the PowerPoint, and we are reading the PowerPoint when we are going for lecture. We are dumping the information there. We don't need to dump the information. We just have to give an idea. We are reading the PowerPoint. We don't have to read the PowerPoint. We just need to understand, make the people understand as a visual aid. Use the PowerPoint as a visual aid, not a reading aid. And what is the best visual aid? Best visual aid is the lecturer. PowerPoint is not the best visual aid. If the lecturer is good, if the professor is good, if the teacher is good, he will be the best visual aid for the student. Coming to do these 5 when you are giving a lecture. First, sympathize with the audience, structure your lecture, sequence your topic, standardize your lecture according to the recent guidelines, and simplify those guidelines. These 5 S's, if you do, if you sympathize with the audience, if you structure your lecture, if you sequence the audience, if you standardize your lecture, and if you simplify your lecture, that's the lecture will be most appreciated by the audience. So when I give a lecture, at the end, when I give a lecture, I accept people look at their watch, but I don't tolerate, what I don't tolerate is they keep their watches to their ear, whether it's working or stopped. So you shouldn't be at that pathetic situation at the end of the lecture that people started looking at their watches, and if it's okay to look at watches, but they shouldn't think that watch is stopped at some point of time. Okay, thank you very much. Give me your insights.
Thank you, Shekhar, for excellent topic. I think
Thank you, Shekhar.
everyone
My
not
comments are there. Thank you.
so.
Yeah, thank you, ma. My comments are there. Very nice.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Better,
Thank you,
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Shekhar. It was enlightening about the presentation, but I missed half of it.
So we have to follow the present. We are in Pandik board. So that means it's a lot of information, but we are, some lectures are boring lecture, but we have to change our mind like a creative teacher. Our goal goes to creative teacher. So that means it's lively and useful information we have to give. That means you have to create a Dias is a live theater performance. So if it hard topic also, we have to tell the how we have to give the information easily, that we have to prepare. And every during the lecture, you have to take a break every 15 minutes or 20 minutes. So that time you have to change the lecture. That time you have to ask any question or give any joke, tell the any joke. So immediately audience mind will change. So best one is the visual aid. So we are more depending on PowerPoint presentation. So we have to reduce the information. That means you have to give information, and extra points we have to read in a particular one book. We have to tell the students. So our aim is goes to visual aid. And in lecturology, suppressed emotion means that student have need attendance or some problem. That's why he comes to the class, but somnolence is present. So that lecturology is we have to reduce. And we have to prepare your teaching skills and go lively. So that is our aim is next time onwards.
Yes, madam. That's
Any
what it is.
Yeah, so we learned about our students. We not cover so much. Previously, we are covered so many information. You have to read that one. I mean, we are giving information. Now onwards, we are not giving that much of information. We will tell only 70%, 30%. You go and read that textbook only.
Madam, you don't have to give the 70% also. You have to teach the 30%. 30% only you need. 30% you need to tell them. 70% they can read from the book.
Okay. So
what is not covered in the talk in the lecture, it will be covered in the exam.
Yes. So always remember all the students will cover only 30%, and remaining 70% you go and read in your textbook, because your efforts, your reading, your talking, and your information is more important. Thank you. Any questions from audience? Sir, Srinivas sir, Satish sir, and Ramana Prasad sir. Manjula?
Yeah, it was nice, excellent class. Mentioning about how to do presentation. Shekhar, I missed 50% most of the initial part of your lecture. Please,
Okay, madam.
please share, or
I
otherwise I'll ask you to do once again for my students in our college. I'll just arrange for some class for that.
yes, madam, definitely. Anytime.
Manjula, so
Yeah.
in this lecture, you never ask the PowerPoint presentation. That is the main thing. So always attend the live class.
Yeah, that
Because
is
we
what.
were asked PowerPoint also, we are never read, never open. So
Yes,
always
that is
try
true.
to attend the live theater. That is the main motto in this lecture.
Yes, madam.
Okay.
Okay, then bye.
Good morning.
Morning,
You should
sir.
also mention the take-home message, and the vital points should be repeated once or twice. And the lecture should be an interactive session, not
Yes, sir.
like I told, monotonous.
Yes, sir. Any more insights? Shrikant?
నేను ఎంతసేపు చెప్పారు ఇప్పుడు ఈ టాక్ నేను మధ్యలో ఐసీ రౌండ్స్ లోకి వెళ్ళి మిస్ అయ్యాను నీ
అయిపోయింది.
టాక్ కాదు నీది అవ్వంగానే అదే అడుగుదా అనుకున్నాను నేను క్వశ్చన్ నువ్వెంతసేపు చెప్పావు ఇప్పుడని
Before 9 అయిపోయింది కదా.
I completed before 9 only.
Before 9 is stick to time.
8:59 I completed.
నైస్ బాగుంది డెఫినేషన్ అదిరిపోయింది అసలు ఫస్ట్
డెఫినేషన్ తర్వాత మోడిఫైడ్ డెఫినేషన్ కూడా చాలా బాగుంది.
కాదు శేఖర్, పెద్ద పెద్ద వాళ్ళందరూ లెఫ్ట్ అయిపోయారేంటి?
దెబ్బకి అలాంటి క్లాస్ చెప్పాడు మేడం.
కాదు, జట్ని శ్రీనివాస్ గారు, సతీష్ గారు, రాణి మేడం, మోహన్ సార్ అంటే ఓకే క్లాస్ ఉందని వెళ్ళిపోయారు. చూడు కామెంట్ చాట్ లో పెట్టారు సంథింగ్ చూడు.
నాది యాక్చువల్ గా డిస్కనెక్ట్ అయిపోయింది. చాట్ నాకు మొత్తం లేదు.
నేను చూసాను. ఒక్క నిమిషం. థ్యాంక్ యూ శేఖర్, ఇట్ ఈస్ వెరీ గుడ్. యూ మెన్షన్ వాట్ నాట్ టు అండ్ వాట్ టు డూ. Maybe make stress on positive points. Thank you. Look, listen and feel is the catch. Involving audience is crucial. After understanding their level, all your points, how to prepare, make every student to go through your lecture.
Okay, that's a good, very good insight from Mohan sir, madam.
And one more thing, and everyone, and Srinivas sir, Chandana, and Chaitanya, Manjula, everyone gave excellent lecture, inspiration, always free. And next VBT, and I think visual person also, Bashira, I think. Mr. Bashir also given eye-opener, sir. Thank you so much. Excellent lecture.
Yes. Thank you, madam. Because I felt very inspired about after listening to this lecture in person with who is delivering it. Okay, he is the academic director of Manipal University, Manipal Academy of Higher Education, Dr. Ramanujan. He is the one who delivered this lecture in front of me last Sunday.
చాలా అదృష్టం. ఎంత అదృష్టం ఉంటే అలాంటి చాయిస్ వస్తుందో.
అరే విక్రమ్ ఇక్కడే ఉన్నాడు లాస్ట్ 10 minutes అన్నాడు.
హాయ్ విక్రమ్.
సీరియస్ గా కేస్ రెఫర్ ఏదో చూస్తున్నాడు.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
thank you we'll leave it right.
Thank you Shekhar, thank you to all.
Thank you madam.